Sometimes, the smallest interruptions turn into the biggest moments of your life. Emily Parker had always believed her life was predictable. Same routes, same faces, same parking spot under the dim yellow streetlight outside her apartment building. That Friday evening, the sky hung heavy with clouds, and she drove home with her heart weighed down even more. Her engagement ring glinted faintly under the dashboard light, a silent reminder of the argument she'd had that morning with Ryan, her fiancé. Words had been said, cold ones, and the silence that followed her home felt louder than traffic. She turned into the parking lot, eyes tired, thoughts spinning. Maybe she had been too harsh. Maybe he had. It didn't matter anymore. All she wanted was to get inside, shower, and forget the world. Her phone buzzed once with his name on the screen, but she didn't answer. She just sighed, shifted to reverse, and started backing into her usual spot. That's when it happened. Knock, knock. A sharp, sudden sound on the driver's side window that made her heart jump. She froze, foot on the brake, pulse racing. For a split second, she thought maybe it was Ryan. Maybe he'd followed her home. But when she turned, it wasn't him. It was Daniel, her neighbor from the apartment next door. The quiet guy with kind eyes who mostly kept to himself. She'd seen him walking his golden retriever a few times, headphones in, always polite but distant. He looked different up close, his expression serious, one hand holding a leash, the other still resting on her window. Emily rolled the window down halfway, still catching her breath. "Daniel, what's wrong?" He pointed toward the front of her car, voice calm but firm. "You almost hit my dog." Her stomach dropped. "Oh my God," she whispered, pushing open the door, scanning the ground. The golden retriever sat beside Daniel, unharmed but startled, tail tucked. "I'm so sorry, I didn't see, I swear I was going slow." Daniel nodded. You stopped just in time." His voice softened. No anger, no accusation, just quiet observation. Emily exhaled shakily, brushing her hair back. "I really didn't mean, I had a long day." He smiled faintly, the kind that felt more understanding than polite. "Looks like it." He paused, eyes steady on hers. "Rough week?" That question, simple, gentle, hit her harder than it should have. No one had asked her that. Not Ryan, not anyone. She wanted to answer, to tell him everything, but the words caught in her throat. So she just nodded, half smiling. "Something like that." Daniel gave a soft chuckle and bent to pet Bella, his dog. "She forgives easily," he said. "You should try that too." Emily blinked, caught off guard by his tone. It wasn't just friendly, it was honest. He didn't know her, yet it felt like he somehow did. As he turned to leave, leash in hand, the wind picked up slightly. A strand of her hair brushed her cheek, and she watched him walk away, his figure fading into the gray dusk. Something about that brief moment, that unexpected knock, that stranger's calm concern, left her unsettled in a way she couldn't explain. Inside her apartment, she dropped her bag, leaned against the door and closed her eyes. The sound of that knock replayed in her head like a heartbeat. She tried to shake it off, but Daniel's words echoed. "You should try forgiving easily." Forgive whom? Ryan, herself? She took off her engagement ring and set it on the counter. For the first time it felt heavy. Not like love, but like a question she couldn't answer. Later that night, as rain began tapping on her window, Emily couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Daniel's calm eyes, the quiet confidence in his voice. He wasn't supposed to matter. He was just a neighbor, a stranger who'd knocked at the right time. But why did it feel like more? The next morning, she caught herself glancing through the blinds. Daniel was outside with Bella, laughing softly as the dog chased a tennis ball across the grass. He looked peaceful, unhurried, living in a rhythm completely opposite to hers. For a moment, she envied that calm, that simplicity. As she watched, he turned slightly, as if sensing her eyes on him. Their gazes met, and he smiled, just enough to make her heart skip. She froze, embarrassed, and quickly stepped away from the window. Why did it feel like she'd been seen for the first time in months? She shook her head, convincing herself it was nothing. Just coincidence, Just curiosity, but deep down she knew better. The knock on her window hadn't been just a warning. It had stirred something in her. Something small, maybe even foolish, but real. That evening, she found herself lingering outside after work, pretending to organize things in her car, hoping, without admitting it, to see him again. But Daniel didn't appear. Only Bella's leash hung from the porch railing, swaying gently in the wind. The air felt colder, quieter. And in that stillness, she realized she was waiting, not for an apology from Ryan, not for clarity, but for another knock. Something inside her whispered that this wasn't over. That the moment she thought was accidental might have been the beginning of something she didn't even know she needed. Emily closed her car door, the sound echoing in the empty lot. She glanced once more toward Daniel's window, where a soft light flickered through the curtains, and though she didn't understand why, she smiled. Because sometimes the universe doesn't shout. It just knocks. What if the person who notices your silence understands you better than the one who hears your words? The next evening, Emily tried to distract herself with chores, but her thoughts kept circling back to Daniel. She told herself it was just curiosity, gratitude maybe, nothing more. Yet when she saw him outside walking Bella again, she found herself opening her door at the same time, pretending to check her mail. He noticed and smiled. "Careful," he said lightly. "Bella's still suspicious of your car." Emily laughed, the sound surprising even her. "I owe her an apology, and maybe a treat." Daniel chuckled and crouched to pet Bella. "She forgives quickly. I told you she's a better person than most of us." Something in his tone made Emily's chest tighten. It wasn't flirtation. It was kindness, the kind that had been missing in her life for too long. They talked for a few minutes, simple things, work, weather, coffee. But even in those small exchanges, she felt a calm she hadn't felt in months. The next day, Daniel left a cup of coffee on her car hood with a sticky note. "Peace offering, from Bella." Emily smiled all morning. Soon, coffee became a ritual. Sometimes they'd sit on the stairs with paper cups, watching the sunset. She told him about her job, her stress, her uncertainty about her engagement. Daniel listened, really listened, never judging, never interrupting. One evening, as the sky faded into pink and gold, Daniel looked at her quietly and said, "You don't laugh like someone who's happy." Emily froze. "What do you mean?" He shrugged gently. "You laugh with your mouth, but not your eyes. I used to do that too." It was such a simple observation, yet it cracked something open inside her. She looked down, unable to answer. No one had ever seen through her that easily. Not even Ryan, the man she was supposed to marry. She changed the subject quickly, but Daniel didn't push. He only said, "You deserve someone who doesn't make you forget how to smile for real." That night, Emily sat on her balcony, staring at the lights flickering from Daniel's apartment. The walls between them felt thinner than they should. She didn't understand why, but her heart felt both lighter and heavier all at once. The next morning, Ryan called. His voice was cold, mechanical. "We need to talk," he said. Emily's eyes drifted to the window, where Daniel stood on the sidewalk with Bella, waving as if the day had already begun with warmth. She hung up the phone slowly, her heartbeat quickening with something she didn't want to name. The hardest truth is realizing you were never really seen until now. For days, Emily tried to stay away from Daniel. She told herself it was safer that way, but every time she heard Bella's bark outside or saw Daniel's car parked beside hers, her heart reacted before her mind could stop it. It wasn't love, she kept insisting. It was just comfort. A temporary warmth in the cold space her relationship had left behind. One evening, she came home late, drained from another argument with Ryan over the phone. The air felt heavy, but as she walked toward her door, Daniel stepped out of his apartment holding 2 mugs. "Couldn't sleep," he said. "Coffee helps." Emily hesitated, then smiled softly. "Maybe I could use one too." They sat on the balcony, lights from the city flickering below. The silence between them wasn't awkward. It was gentle, like both understood that words could sometimes ruin fragile peace. After a while, Daniel spoke quietly. You ever feel like you're living someone else's life? She turned to him, startled. Every day, she whispered. He nodded, staring into the night. After my wife died, I stopped living at all. I worked, ate, slept, but I wasn't really there. I thought that was just how life worked after loss. Emily's eyes softened. You never told me you were married. He smiled faintly. I didn't know if I still was, in a way. Grief doesn't end. It just changes shape. The honesty in his words hit her harder than anything Ryan had said in months. She looked at him, realizing how much pain he carried, and how quietly he had managed to rebuild himself. You seem strong, she said. Daniel shook his head. No, just tired of pretending. Then he looked at her, eyes steady. And you? Who are you pretending for? Her chest tightened. She wanted to say she was fine, that she loved Ryan, that everything was normal. But the truth spilled out instead. I don't know who I am anymore, she admitted. I keep smiling so people don't ask. Daniel's voice softened. You don't have to pretend here. In that moment, Emily realized something. Daniel didn't just listen. He understood. The quiet between them wasn't empty. It was full of things neither dared to say aloud. As rain began to fall lightly, they stayed there, sharing silence, sharing warmth. For the first time in years, Emily felt seen, not for her role, not for her title, but for the person underneath. But peace never lasts long. The next morning, as Emily was leaving for work, a familiar voice called her name. She turned and froze. It was Ryan, standing by her car, holding a small suitcase and wearing a nervous smile. We need to talk, he said. Sometimes love isn't about who you've known the longest. It's about who finally saw you. Ryan's sudden appearance felt like a gust of wind from another life. Familiar, but cold. Emily stood still, unsure what to say. He looked tired, his usual confidence replaced by a strange nervousness. Can we talk inside? He asked, voice low. Inside the apartment, silence wrapped around them. Ryan glanced at her unpacked boxes and sighed. You've been distant, he said. I know I've made mistakes, but we can fix this. Emily listened quietly, but something inside her stayed still. The words sounded practiced, the kind people use when they're trying to repair a picture instead of the wall behind it. Ryan, she said softly, when did we stop being us? He frowned. What are you talking about? We're just going through a rough patch. But she wasn't convinced. That rough patch had become her life. She had spent months trying to make things right, trying to be enough, trying to smile through silence. Now, hearing him speak felt like reading a book she'd already finished, and realizing she didn't miss the ending. Her eyes drifted toward the window. Daniel was outside with Bella, tossing a ball across the lawn. Simple, peaceful, real. Ryan followed her gaze, his tone sharpening. Is that him? The neighbor? Emily didn't answer. She didn't need to. The truth wasn't about Daniel. It was about herself. For the first time, she knew what peace felt like, and she couldn't go back to pretending. She took a deep breath. Ryan, you're a good man, she said, but I think we've both been holding on to what we used to be, not what we are. Ryan looked at her, confused and hurt, but she didn't waver. She walked him to the door gently, no anger, just finality. You'll find someone who fits your world, she whispered. I just don't belong in it anymore. When the door closed, Emily stood there, her heart racing. There was sadness, yes, but underneath it, freedom. That evening, she stepped outside. The sunset was painting everything gold. Daniel looked up from the bench as Bella trotted beside him, tail wagging. He smiled when he saw her, not asking questions, not demanding explanations, just smiling, like someone who already knew. Emily walked over, sitting beside him. Neither spoke for a while. The wind moved softly, and for once, silence felt like home. Daniel broke it gently. So, Bella's still waiting for that treat. Emily laughed, wiping a tear that wasn't from sadness anymore. Then I guess I owe her more than one. Their laughter mixed with the fading light, calm and real. But just as Emily leaned back, watching the first stars appear, her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number lit up the screen. She frowned as she read it, and her smile slowly faded.